The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. Yeah!
Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of the Pool Guy Show. Today I'm going to do part 2 of the staining in your pool. And part 1 I covered rust stains and organic stains. You can look that podcast up. Today I'm going to be covering metal staining and mottling of the pool plaster. This week's podcast is brought to you by InyoPools.com. InyoPools has been helping pool owners find the right pool parts since 2001. With over 50,000 pool parts in stock, order online and have your parts delivered right to your door. Also, Riptide Pool Vacuum is a sponsor. If you have a pool with a lot of heavy debris in the bottom and you do pool service, this is a great way to speed up your pool route. You can learn more about the Riptide Pool Vacuum at www.riptidevac.com. So in the first part I covered rust stains and organic staining, and today I'm going to be talking a lot about the metal staining in the pool and how to remove some of the staining, how to remove the metal from the pool, and also pool plaster mottling. So there's a difference in that, and sometimes you get confused of what is actually a metal stain and what is just natural mottling of the pool plaster. So if you own a pool and you notice any kind of discoloration in the plaster, chances are it could be metal staining in the pool. So the first way to see if it's metal staining or not is to test the water for copper and iron. And the best way to do this is with test strips. You can use a copper iron test strip. You can look online or get them at your local pool store. You can also take a sample of water into your local pool store. They'll test it for metal in the water. Color Q makes a couple of kits that do metal testing, and one of them is the Color Q Pro 9, and they also have the Lamont Spin Touch. They both test for metals in the pool. So see if you have metals in the water as your first step. And then for the stain itself, you can test the stain with Jack's Magic. They make the sequestering agent. They also make a stain identification kit that you can use, and it's pretty effective of diagnosing the stain. You can also get a vitamin C tablet, rub it on the stain. If the stain fades or comes off, then it's probably a copper stain. And then the ascorbic acid treatment will be pretty successful. And if it doesn't come off or turns darker, then it's probably an iron or another kind of metal stain. And the ascorbic acid won't be effective in that treatment. And some stains won't be able to be lifted off the pool unless you drain and acid wash it. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of different companies that make topical ways to remove the stain in the pool. Some may be more effective than others depending on how big the stain is and your surface type. If you have a fiberglass pool or a vinyl pool, the ascorbic acid treatment works really effectively in removing the staining from the pool. And if you have like a 20,000 gallon fiberglass pool, 1 pound of ascorbic acid, which is the same mineral that's in the vitamin C tablet, will take the copper staining off the pool. So you can usually identify the metal stain by the color on the plaster. You have a blue, green, or black stain. It's probably a copper stain. More of a brown and reddish color would be an iron stain. And then there's other metal stain colors like, you'll see a purple stain. I'll go over the purple dust also here, which is a common problem you run into. So to treat the metal stain, the first thing you want to do is get the metal suspended into the water. And the way that you do that is with a metal sequestering agent. Jack's Magic is really good. And they make the blue stuff and the pink stuff, which are both metal sequestering agents. And you would add this to your pool to suspend the metal ions in the water. And so that's what the sequestering agent does. It'll suspend the metal ions into the water. And it may remove the stain also. It may not, so you may have to do some other kind of treatment to get the stain off. And you'll find that the sequestering agent, once it wears off, the metal will drop back into the pool. So I filmed a video on this, and the second part to removing the metal is to use the Culator product. That's spelled C-U-L-A-T-O-R. And I would use a 4.0, put it in your pump basket, and you leave it in there for 30 days. And as the sequestering agent will suspend the metal in the water, the Culator will actually pull the metal ions out of the pool water itself. And you can't remove the metal ions with backwashing or cleaning your filter. The only way to actually remove it, if you want to completely, is to actually drain all the water out of the pool. So the Sealator is actually a less expensive way of doing that. You don't have to drain the water out, and it'll pull the metal ions out of the water. If you notice, if you retest it after 30 days and still notice a level of copper or iron in the pool, do another sequestering agent treatment and get another Sealator 4.0 put in your pump basket, and that should do the trick. Usually one 30-day cycle is all you're going to need to extract the metal from the pool. So now that after you remove the metal ions, you may be left with a stain in there. So there's like I mentioned, there's some topical products you can put in there that may remove the stain, it may not. You'll have to kind of try that. It's hit and miss sometimes. Purity Pools, they're the ones that make the leaf rakes that I use. They also make a Purity Pool UAW underwater acid wash set. And what this does is you can introduce muriatic acid to this device, and you place it on the bottom of your pool or the side of the wall. And it's basically like acid washing a portion of the pool without draining it. And you can get this for maybe $150 or $200. A lot of the guys in my group use this product, and it's a pretty effective way to remove a stain. It's like acid washing the pool without draining it. And of course, you might have to drain and acid wash your entire pool to remove the metal staining from the pool. In some cases, if the staining isn't removed by any kind of topical treatment that you put in there to kind of remove the stain. So sometimes the metal staining, you can remove it. Sometimes you can't. You're going to have a lot better results in a fiberglass or vinyl pool. But in plaster pools or PebbleTech, the results are going to be mixed at best, and you may have to live with the stain until you decide to drain and acid wash the pool. So how does the metal actually get into your pool? There are several ways it gets in. One, a metal object may fall into your pool, causing the stain and causing you to have the metal ions in the water. You also can introduce metal to the pool by using inexpensive or cheap quality copper algicides, or overusing the copper algicide will also create staining in the pool. And I'm going to touch on something here. Let me just talk about the fill water too, and then I'll touch on the purple staining that you'll see in the pools. And the fill water may also have metal ions in it, and this will add metal to the pool that way. So a good way to eliminate metals entering through fill water, you could get a pre-sediment filter. Pleatco makes one, and it's pretty effective in filtering out a lot of the sediment that may have metal in it. And Sealator, the ones that make the metal treatment for your pool, they also sell a pre-sediment filter. And this one here sells for $400. It's a little bit pricey. However, it is effective to get 8 parts per million of metal ions out of 20,000 gallons of water. So it's definitely maybe worth the price if you live in an area where your fill water is adding metals to your pool. One good way to tell if you're getting metals in your pool is to shock your pool. You bring your chlorine level up to shock levels, and if the pool has like a green tint to the color, bright green tint, almost like your pool is full of algae, but it's not. And then once the chlorine level drops down, the tint drops back to a clear blue, then more than likely there are some metal ions in your pool caused by iron, and you have to use a sequestering agent to do the metal treatment to get it out. And sometimes this will happen if you have a dust storm in your area. A lot of dirt blows in your pool, and you'll find a lot of metal in the soil and in the dirt around your property, and this will go into the pool if you don't vacuum it out right away. The dirt sits there on the pool bottom and may stain the pool surface also because there may be iron in the dirt or other metals. So if you live in an area with a lot of dust storms, definitely keep an eye on that and get the dirt out right away. I recommend a good automatic cleaner to keep the dirt from staying on the surface. So those are some ways that the metal can get into the water. It could be your fill water, something that falls in your pool, using a cheap copper algicide. And as I touch on the purple dust, I'll also talk about one more way that copper gets in your pool, and that's from having low alkalinity and low pH. So something that you may notice if you do service accounts or if you're a homeowner is a kind of a purple dust all over the pool, and it's a purple cyanate. So basically what happens is you have to have certain conditions for it to happen. You have to have high pH and high total alkalinity, so a pH of maybe 8.2 and the alkalinity over 150. You have to have high cyanuric acid levels or conditioner levels, and I'm talking 150 plus parts per million in your pool. And then you have to have copper introduced to the water. So It could be from using copper algicides in the pool, or it could be from another method that copper gets in your pool, and that's if your pH and alkalinity get really low for a period of time. Inside your pool heater is a heat exchanger, and there's copper in there. So what would happen is that corrosive water will cause the copper to drop out into the pipes and into the pool. You may not see any staining, or you may see staining, but the copper is in the water. So what happens is when you bring the total alkalinity and pH down to an acceptable level, because it's going to be high at this point, you bring it down to 7.4, and you bring alkalinity down to maybe 100. What's going to happen is that this purple dust will form all over the pool. You'll see it around the rim of the skimmer. You're going to see it on the weir gate in the skimmer. The automatic cleaner hoses will be covered with it. You'll see it on the water line. And you can wipe it off on the tiles with your hands, and you can also wipe it off the cleaner hose with your hand, but you won't be able to wipe it off the surface of the pool. It's stuck on there really well. It almost looks like someone took some chalk, purple chalk, and threw it in your pool, and it's got all over everything. So this is just a reaction from high cyanuric acid and also the copper in the water. And when you lower the total alkalinity and you lower the pH, this will drop out into the water. So to cure this, you can cure it pretty easily. You would partially drain your pool to lower the cyanuric acid level down to below 100 parts per million. And you would also do the metal sequestering to get the copper out of the pool. And within 4 to 6 weeks, all the purple dust will be gone. And I've done this with several accounts. It's really effective. So this process works well. So don't be scared if you see your pool's purple with dust everywhere. That's just the reaction from the high cyanuric acid level and copper, and then balancing the water. And it's very common in California, where we use a lot of pool tablets. You're going to find a lot of this purple dust, especially if the customer is using a low quality copper algicide. And I think the takeaway from this is that you want to try to keep metal out of the pool, because it's really hard to cure and very hard to treat, especially if it causes staining. So I've seen pools on my route where they have a lot of metal staining all over the walls of the pool, and I've seen so much just a little bit of metal staining. So the method that I described is a really effective way of treating it. Sequestering agent, and a see you later, and then you have to see if any kind of topical stain remover will actually work to get rid of the stain. And as far as the purple dust, you just have to do that procedure to get rid of the dust in the pool. So a lot of customers, or a lot of pool techs, also get confused with what is stain in the pool and what is mottling of the plaster. So I'm going to talk a little bit about mottling of a plaster pool. You'll see this a lot in a colored plaster pool. On a cloudy day, it's going to be more pronounced than on a sunny day. And what mottling is, if you've probably seen a topography map of the United States, where they show valleys and they show hills, and you see the different colors indicating different depths and heights. And that's kind of what the mottling looks like. You're going to have different color variations of the plaster, and you're going to notice that in a darker colored plaster pool, it may be more pronounced. In a light gray plaster pool, you're going to see a lot more of the different coloration. You also see some streaks in there, like if someone took a pen and drew on the plaster. And you'll see some crazes, which is kind of like similar to the streaks, but it's more of a weird pattern. And you'll see just a typical mottling, which is more like a map with different heights and valleys in it and different colorations. And the white plaster pool does have this also, but you're not going to see it as pronounced as in a colored plaster pool. And a lot of this has to do with the plaster mix. They've changed what is allowed in the mix in California, and probably in other states too, which makes the plaster mix a lot more unstable. And it's nothing that the plaster did. It's mainly a natural thing that happens to the plaster, the mottling. And if a customer has any problems understanding this, you can send them to the National Plaster Council. Just look it up online, and they have articles on mottling. And their take on it is that it's just a normal thing that happens to a colored plaster pool or a white plaster pool, that is normal discoloration over time, and it just depends on the pool itself of how much mottling will occur. Some have extreme mottling, some have a little bit of mottling, but it's going to happen in any kind of plaster pool. And there really isn't much you can do about it. You can acid wash the pool, but it may not change much as far as the mottling looks in the pool. It may make it worse, it may make it better. I think the best thing to do is, if you want a colored look to your pool, to go with Pebble Tech or Pebble Sheen or Diamond Bright. That way you don't have to worry about the color variations. If you don't mind the color variations, then go with the color Plaster, but I gotta warn you ahead of time that you're gonna have a lot of discoloration. You're gonna have streaks, uneven colors. It's gonna not look uniform probably after the first year or two. And if you use a light gray, it's probably the worst color you can pick. The light gray is gonna have the most mottling. It's gonna be very obvious on a cloudy day. You're gonna see different patterns in the pool. So definitely consider that if you're remodeling or if you're having a pool built, that the mottling or the different color variations in a plaster pool is normal, and it's going to happen no matter what you do. A lot of times the service tech will get blamed for it. The customer will be upset with you because they notice these scratches in the plaster, but it's not caused by anything you did. It's just the way the plaster is curing and aging. And with that respect, if you're getting a new pool remodeled or installed, you want to make sure that you don't swim in a new plastered pool, because you can also damage the surface by using the pool too early. My recommendation is not to go in the pool for at least 3 weeks, and I've seen many things happen if people enter the pool too early. If you manually vacuum the pool in the first week, you're going to have the wheel marks in the plaster, and they're going to stay there for the life of the pool. I've known new pools where dogs got in there after a couple days, and you'll see their footprints on the steps permanently in the pool. And same with people, if they go in and swim too early, you'll see their handprints or footprints. So it's like wet cement, basically. So the best thing I suggest is, when you're having a pool built or replastered, make sure the builder has a reputable startup person that will start up the pool. I personally like doing acid startups. I think they're pretty effective. And after the acid startup, I like to balance the pH and alkalinity. And then I like to run the pool for at least 7 days straight, 24 hours a day. And for me, I think that eliminates a lot of the discoloration and mottling in the plaster when it's started up correctly. And then there's something called hydration. It's not very common, but if the plaster does the pool on a day where there's a lot of humidity, or there's moisture, or when the gunite hasn't cured, there could be water forming in there, trapped in there, and it'll cause discoloration of the plaster also. It'll look like a metal stain, but it's not. It's just hydration. I've seen this before, something similar. If the builder fills up the pool with a garden hose and doesn't put a towel around it, the area where the nozzle is touching the plaster is going to leave a discoloration mark. I had a customer one time, brand new pool, as it's filling up, he decided to turn it off because it was getting late. He didn't want it to overflow, so he turned the pool off, and then the next day he turned it back on. The problem is, 2 feet down, there's this line all the way around the pool where the watermark was when he turned it off. So the plaster is very sensitive to that kind of stuff. When you're filling a pool, it's definitely something that to be concerned about, and you can do some discoloration or damage to the plaster very easily. And of course, some of the different discolorations in the plaster could be due to a defect in the plaster when they are applying the plaster itself. So not all of it is mottling. You may have some white mark discoloration in the plaster or other kind of defects, and that is due to the application of the plaster by the plaster company. So even though mottling is a normal thing in the plaster over time, there's other defects of the plaster that could happen by a poor application of the surface itself. So there's a distinction, and of course send me a photo and I can help you determine if it is just mottling or if it's a defect in the plaster job when they constructed the pool. I talked on the other part one about the organic staining, so also keep in mind that if leaves are in the bottom of the pool and the chlorine zeroes out, sometimes they'll leave a stain. It looks a lot like a metal stain on your pool, so make sure that the first thing you want to check to make sure it's not a metal stain but an organic stain before you waste money on sequestering agents or treatments for the pool. So a good way to tell if it's organic is to get a 3-inch tablet, rub it on the stain. If it comes off, you know that it's organic. Or you can just raise your chlorine level up to shock levels 5 to 10 parts per million. Let the pool run for a week at that level, and the stain should lift off the bottom of the pool if it is an organic stain. If it's a metal stain, it won't lift off the pool. A lot of times you can try also Some topical things like a stain eraser. This is a tool that you can attach to your pool. You can actually rub the stain off, and it's pretty effective also getting the stains off. Again, you're going to have mixed results removing the stains in some cases, and the end result may be a draining and acid wash. And a note on the acid wash: if the pool is really old and the plaster is chipped or the pebble stick has cracks in it, I would not recommend draining and acid washing it because you could damage the plaster even more. You'll remove the staining, but the plaster may be damaged because it's really old. So you may have to live with the stain until you're ready to remodel the pool, or replaster, or resurface it. And if you're confused at all in any way of what actually is in your pool, what kind of stain you have, definitely email me, send me a photo of your pool, try to get a picture of the staining as best you can, and I can try to help identify what I think it is and the best course of treatment for that stain to help you out there. I know it can be really disheartening to find a stain in your pool or staining in your pool, but it's just part of owning a pool that these things may happen, and you have to be aware of: is it a metal stain, is it an organic stain, or is it just the mottling or aging of the plaster? So I can definitely help you with that, diagnosing that. If you're a homeowner and need more help, you can go to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com, and I have an ebook. I also have a print book available on Amazon, and this book will help you with all your pool care needs. There's a section in there about ascorbic acid treatment and also metals in your pool. You can refer to that. And also, if you're in the service industry and you need more one-on-one help, you can definitely check out my coaching group. It's really taking off. I have about 114 pool guys and gals in there right now, and they really like the Group Me thread where you can post messages, problems, or you can post pictures of things you're dealing with, and we can answer your questions. It's a great forum, and it's part of free when you join the group at the $10 or $20 level. Also, you can text me, of course, in real time or call me, depending on what level you sign up at. It's a real bargain at that price. The service that I offer, I could be charging 4 or 5 times this, and I just do it to help people out that are learning or new to the business or want more help or want to network. It's a great place to network in there. If you're a manufacturer with a product, you can definitely think about joining the group. I have some manufacturers in there, and it's a great way to connect with guys and to get some feedback one-on-one and get some testing through the different people in the group. So definitely think about joining my group. And I have a few homeowners in there also that need one-on-one help with their pool, and I've helped one of them with the ascorbic acid treatment for her fiberglass pool just recently. So those are I have a lot of great resources available to you if you're a homeowner or service professional. And just check out my website, and all the links are there for those services. So I hope you found this podcast helpful. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.